Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With us in the studio today is our good friend, our co-pilot, our producer, our guy, Dan the Man in the studio, Mr. Dan. Say hello to all the people out there.
Hope everybody's doing well. Hello, and welcome to another episode, my friends.
Hell yeah. This thing would not happen without Dan, so a round of applause for Dan, guys. He takes care of all the nuts and bolts behind the scenes, and let's pray for his long health and for his long sobriety, because this thing ain't happening without our friend Dan the Man. So thank you, Dan, for everything you do for us.
You're welcome. It's right on topic.
Yeah, there you go. So before we get into our topic today, if you're new to the podcast, let me give you a little background. I am a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. I've been in the field about, lost track now, maybe about 21 years, 22 years going on. I've been in recovery over 40 years, and I also grew up in an alcoholic family system. So for whatever reasons, I've had alcoholism and addiction around me my entire life. And once I found these tools, I found that they work not only for addicts and alcoholics, they work for everybody. And that's why we have a fellowship group for just about anything that ails you out there. So if you're just joining us, you are in the right place, and we will help you find these tools and use them to have a better life. And what are we talking about ultimately? We're talking about most of people are on a trajectory or a path that was not meant to be for them, but they got sidetracked by life and by what happened to them and by trauma and by bad people and sick people, and all of a sudden your life doesn't look like anything you want for yourself. Well, this is your chance to change it. Recovery is the game changer. I don't know of anything else that quite is as much of a game changer as the 12-step recovery program, but you can have the life you want, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It's never too late. So hang around, come every week, and we'll teach you these little tools to help you get there. Before we get started on the topic today, I want to share a little story with you. By the time you watch this, it'll probably be past the holidays, and we may be well into the new year, so Happy New Year to you. We film these things a few episodes out, by the way, so that if you do send us a question, you haven't heard it yet, don't unplug, because we are, so far, have successfully addressed every question we ever get. So it just means it's on a future podcast, and we have a few in the can. So don't lose hope if you just sent your question, and it will be answered in the rotation eventually. But I had a great experience recently I wanted to share with you all about. There was a show coming to town, which was the Charlie Brown Christmas live on stage, and that has always been one of my favorite specials as a child. Came out in 65. I was born in 62, so about the time I was 3, I had consciousness, seeing that the first time. That and Rudolph were my two favorites, as they are for many, to get in the Christmas spirit. And my mother is getting to an age where she's going to be 90 in 6 months. And I wanted to take her to, share the experience, be together. She was always with us. We were together as a family before my father's alcoholism killed everything, and watched the specials. And so I wanted to take her, and I got front row seats for us. So it's very exciting, very fun. And it was a great show. Everything went smoothly. Everything was wonderful. At one point in the show, there was an active snowball fight where they started throwing things at the audience. And I love that stuff that breaks the fourth wall, because everybody's like, whoa, what's happening? What's happening? It took your mind a second to realize, oh, I'm getting hit. I'm supposed to throw this back. And so just a lot of fun. But the moment for me was really, they encouraged us to help sing the Christmas carols that they used to pad out the show into a 2-act show. And it really brought me back to we would used to go to Mass at 11, and then we'd get out at midnight, and they would have the candles lit with the singing Silent Night, very common thing, and walking out with that, with the bells ringing and the winter air and being Christmas, fresh day. And it was just a really fond memory of all the bad memories I have. And we weren't going to my family's church at that time. We were going to someplace a little more progressive. And I'm listening, and I'm saying, I'm not really much to sing on demand. I don't like somebody telling me what to do. Go figure, I'm an alcoholic. But I could hear my mother singing Silent Night, and it was like this emotional moment I had to put a concrete block on it, because it was surging so strong when I realized that this might be the last time I hear my mother sing a Christmas carol or sing Silent Night, as I had heard her so many years do that, year after year throughout my childhood growing up. And to have that bond together and to have that moment, I'm going to just want to bring up that story for anyone out there that has an aging parent or if your parents are still alive, please get those moments in before they're gone. Because it just made me realize this. Once that's done, that's done. I'll never hear her sing again. And even just to hear her laugh and have fun that night, And for anybody that's in recovery, that if you're not made your full amends to your parents yet, and you're not free of all that stuff that your disease did to the family, please do the work. Because I went from a place where my family basically disowned me and sent me off to treatment about 800 miles away, saying, don't come back. And in fact, that's what the counselor told me when I tried to go home. They don't want you back. And I've gone from that to, we were driving home, and we were talking about the days when I was auditioning in New York to go to school for acting. And we were talking about the great memories we had going to Sardi's, staying at the Waldorf, going to Cafe Carlisle and hearing Bobby Short play the piano. This is stuff you can't do today because the 1% has sewn that up. But back in the 80s, it was still accessible to the general public. And I said to her offhandedly, I said, we always traveled pretty good. We were always good traveling companions. And she said, oh, we always get along. We get along great. And I just remember thinking that was such a basic comment, but what she's saying is, I have no memory of all the crap you pulled when you were sick. And I wanted to offer that ray of hope for everybody out there that I know if you're in early recovery, you are completely overwhelmed with guilt and shame. And this can be eliminated. It can go away. It can be fixed through this process of the 12 steps. So that's her memory, and I'm going to let her die with that. And that made me feel very warm inside to know that my mother's going to die thinking good thoughts about her son.
Juice.
Yeah, totally. Instead of thinking he's a total dick because he's an alcoholic addict. So please don't wait. I do counsel a lot of men as a sponsor and as a therapist who have waited too long to make amends to their parents, and now they've passed away, and they have to do the old graveside amends, which we'll address in a few weeks on the amends segment. But it's not the same. Do it while they're still here and do your work and get that done. All right, so emotional. Get the vapors over here. Or as Michael Myers used to say on Saturday Night Live, I'm getting all verklempt. But it was tough, man. Nobody likes to break down in public, so I was like,
yeah,
I'm like pushing this. Get back in there. Damn, stop. Pretty powerful though, Dan. And I know you've lost your mother, so I know you understand.
Yep. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do my amends with my mother before she died.
That's awesome. There's nothing like it in person, is there?
Yep.
Especially with the people that mean the most to you.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us. Let's get right to the topic, and then we'll have our questions at the end of the program. So I wanted to talk about this tool in that really is the entire 12-step program is centered around. I would say this is a fundamental. We have this triangle of unity, service, and fellowship, and service is, I think it's the bottom one. Do you remember?
I do not.
On the triangle.
Unity, recovery, and service.
Unity, recovery. Okay, recovery. Okay, well, fellowship, recovery. But I think it's the bottom one. But I do know that that's the way it's considered in the program. This is an odd thing you'll hear people say about the AA program, that it's a selfish program. They'll even say goofy things like it's a self-help program. This is not a self-help program. This is a program where you have a sponsor who's going to help you get well. You don't do it yourself. And we use that word selfish because, you have to look out for your own recovery, especially when your life is on the line. I very quickly work on that language with my patients to say it's not selfish, it's self-care. And there's a world of difference. Every day we have to do things for ourselves that if we don't, we die. So if you don't bathe every now and then, if you don't brush your teeth, you'll lose all your teeth. And if you don't poop every now and then, you will die. That's self-care. And so recovery is another version of self-care that I'm going to start to step up for myself, speak my truths, set my boundaries, and take care of me like I never have before in my life. So it's not selfish per se. But the idea of recovery, ultimately, once you've done your work, is to get to a place where you can give it away. That you got to turn back, reach your hand out to the person behind you, and give them that leg up. Same way that someone did that for you. And hence we have this tradition called service work. Excuse me. And I wanted to get into it today because it's made the world of difference in my recovery in terms of juice. And I have been talking to several alcoholics lately, and also through the grapevine, who are a little dry and or burned out. I've heard the phrase of recovery. It was brought up at one of our meetings this past week as a topic, burnout, which is common in recovery. We may dedicate a whole show to that. But I know no other solution that will break you out of that and will prevent you from getting into that than doing service work and helping other people. And we're going to break that down today, what that looks like and how you too could get involved to do all that work. So I was introduced very early to that concept, not through somebody preaching the traditions at me or giving me an educational seminar on the way AA is supposed to work, thank God. Instead, my group had no problems putting the newcomer in charge of coffee. And I remember they told me, "You're coffee guy." And I'm like, do I get a vote in this? Because that is not what I wanted to do. I was not raised to be a jerk asshole, but in America, I was raised to think about me and what I want. And that's our culture in America. It's about how much stuff can I get for me? Can I get more? Can I get more money and more stuff? And for me, it's me. And we build these altars and these just a big old shrine. That's what I'm looking for. The shrine to me, based on what I own, and it's all what neighborhood I live in, what car I drive, all that stuff. And it's not the way to happiness. It never was. But like most things in life, they hide the greatest secret to life right in front of you. And actually the thing that will make you the highest than any drug can ever make you is to do something for somebody else, not expect anything in return. I can promise you that is the greatest high you can experience on earth, better than fentanyl, better than heroin. But again, doing it at first is foreign, so it won't quite feel that way at first. And that's how I felt when they told me I was coffee guy. I was like, nah, I can't do that. It's a commitment, and I'm not so good on commitments. And I have to be accountable, definitely doubled time on that. So I was very nervous and very scared, but they pretty much assured me that this is a way to join the group. This is a way to feel a part of and get rid of that loneliness. And I was like, all right, maybe my people pleaser was active that day, but I didn't fight too hard. And that's why I said, I'll be coffee guy. Now, what happened over the next few months is I would get there early, and because I got there early to the church, and I was staying in a halfway house, I had access to a piano, which gave me that motivation that, oh man, I get here and make the coffee early. I got an hour to wail on this grand piano. And it's not often you get to wail on a grand piano. It's really funny. One of our group members the other day when group was over this week got on the piano because we were in the chapel. And he said that to me. He came up and said, yeah, it's not often you get access to a grand piano. I said, yeah, it's totally different experience, totally different sound. For a guitarist to be like playing the greatest Les Paul or the greatest, Martin guitar if you play acoustic. There is a difference. So that was a bonus on the side. But suddenly I had people coming in that I didn't expect. I just figured they drink their damn coffee and take it for granted like an average alcoholic would. And instead I had people approaching me after the meeting and really thanking me for doing that. Thank you for making the coffee. It's good tonight. And I didn't do anything. I'm just made the way they tell me, oh, it's really good coffee tonight. Blah, blah, blah. And you know what that did? It began rebuilding my decimated self-esteem. I get patients in my group, new every day, who will say, I feel shitty about myself. I feel lowest than the lowest earthworm. And I don't know what to do to make that better. And I tell them, you can't think yourself to set better self-esteem. It doesn't work. You can do all the Oprah-sanctioned affirmations in the mirror that you can think of, and they will not budge it. But when you do something for somebody else without expectation of return, suddenly you start to raise up. Your energy level raises up, and your spirit feels better about who you are, despite what you've done in the past. Because obviously, as a newcomer, you've not done the step work yet, so you're going to feel guilt and shame on a daily basis. But if you think of someone else or do the littlest thing for someone else, just hold the door open for somebody, for God's sakes. We'll give you some breakdown later. You'd be amazed how that can shift your mood and shift how you feel about you. And that's what happened. I had all these people come and saying, hey, man, great coffee. Thank you for doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, man, oh, okay. And the second bonus was now I felt a part of the group. Everybody knew my damn name. I knew their name because they were introducing themselves. I never even talked to half the group before. You know how we get with our little group within the group and we kind of stick to those people we know? Well, now I knew everybody in the group. And it was a lifesaver. And then soon after that, they made me co-chair. And that's a great way to break a newcomer into being chair because they're not quite ready for that sometimes. So just sit beside me. I'll show you how we do it. And eventually we'll let you jump in the chair seat. And that sense of importance, man, you're the guy up there running the meeting. It seems like such a stupid, silly thing, but, in early recovery, it does make you feel like you're the man in some ways. And you'll have newcomers come in even and say, well, I thought you were the man because you're running the meeting. It's like, no, dude, I'm only 3 months sober. And they'd be like, what? So if your group does not provide service opportunities, please look into that and how you can get the newcomer involved in that. It's a great way to plug them in and make them feel a part of right from the get. Now, service work is hard because it means I'm not going to have as much time for my own pleasures. I'm not going to have as much time to do what I want to do. The good news is if you follow the 12-step prescription, we have a tool at the end of your journey that if you don't do it, you will not get the full payoff from the 12 steps. And I'm here to tell you as an old timer with over 40 years of recovery, I have bumped into more people in the rooms of 12 steps that are not doing sponsorship than are. And the form of sponsorship they're doing is really crappy. Oh, yeah, I'll take your call every once in a while, or maybe I'll meet you at a meeting. And we do need those people to help out the newcomer just getting started. But your real job as a sponsor is to take somebody through the 12 steps. And I just said that to somebody today that was feeling a little bit dry from their work. And I said, man, you need a new crazy newcomer in your life. You need somebody that's not you to take the emphasis and focus off you. Because right now you're just thinking about how dry and uncomfortable you're feeling. And that is the full prescription of the steps. And I can nail anybody that comes back to my group about what they did wrong, usually with that one. So, for instance, if I get a person come back, oh, man, I was sober for a year. I was going to meetings. I worked this step with my sponsor. I don't know why I relapsed. And they'll say that. I don't know why I relapsed. And I'll be like, well, I can help you with that. I said, okay, if you don't mind. Okay, let's do it. When you did your 4th step, did you put every single thing down that you did that you're totally embarrassed and shocked and feel terrible about? And did you tell your sponsor about it in step 5? Yes. Okay, well, I don't know if I fully believe that, but I'll take you at your word. Did you make all of your amends and clean up all of your dirty business from the past? And usually this is the one I get on that one. They go, sort of. You can let me yeah. I'm like, okay, you didn't do all those. I get that. Here's the big one, though. Did you turn back and sponsor somebody else? No. It's always a flat no. I just didn't feel qualified. I didn't feel like I was capable. I didn't feel like I could. I was scared. I didn't know what to tell them. And here's the reality of it. In our program, if you're doing the 12 steps, your sponsor will sponsor your first guy through you. So all you got to do is call your sponsor every day and say, what am I supposed to do? What's the next thing? What should I tell this guy? He's got this problem. What should I tell him? And that's it. You don't have to know nothing with your first guy. It's simple. Couldn't be any more simple. But again, this tradition, if you don't turn back and take another person through and ideally get them all the way through the work, I actually have people that I sponsor right now who are several years sober who have not gotten a person entirely through the work. The person just didn't make it. And I feel so sad that they've never experienced that juice, because there is unlike anything on earth to have a guy go all the way through and then just look at you like his eyes are open and he's awake and he's like, holy, everything you told me was right. This is even better than that. And it will feed you the rest of your days on earth. Now, there's an interesting thing about service work. The littlest motion you put out to help someone comes back at you tenfold. It seems to also be that way with negativity. If you're out in the madness, you do some bad things and suddenly you get hammered with some consequences. That can be true too. But I'll tell you a story I experienced this week that was another overwhelming moment, similar to the one I told you with my mother. We have a good friend of ours named Celia, who is doing great with a few years of sobriety. And she's doing great trying to spread the message. She's a great sponsor. She's doing all the deal. And she's getting all the benefits, whereas when I first met her, she just wanted to die. That was her only goal. And so God bless this work. We saved another life. And she told me she was working on this quilt for me, and it was going to be in the color of the Minnesota Vikings, my favorite team. And they are doing well, but I don't know if they're going to make it much more. So we'll see what happens. It seems to be no stopping Detroit. But I'm like, oh, that's great. You didn't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. Of course, that's what we always say. You don't have to do that. But that's what her heart wanted her to do. And so she got her mom to work on this thing. And I get this call from her mom. I kept hearing that we're working on it. And finally, her mom calls me and says, I got your quilt. I want to come drop it off. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll be here tomorrow and blah, blah, blah. And we made arrangements. And I came out. She has her hatch of her SUV open, and she's got this big old bag. I mean, this thing was amazing. This thing is thick. It's got this little personal plaque on the back, which has this woohoo on it that we do at the end of the program and do at the end of the meetings. And it's got this dog jumping into a pile of leaves. And that alone was overwhelming. Like, oh, my God, I can't believe the amount of work and time you put into this. And especially a lot of it was her mother, because it's like, that's the first time I ever met her mother. But before we did anything, I went up to her and she went, come here. And I was like, okay. She said, come here. And she gave me this hug that was like extended and deep and powerful and profound and was like not letting go. And she said to me as she's hugging me, this is from our family. And I'm sitting there going, oh. Because again, it's a weird thing when you're just a human being, alcoholic addict, trying to work your best program and you get that much love back. There's that little part of us that says, I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy. I'm still a screw up, blah, blah, blah. But I try my best to just, my sponsor taught me if someone compliments you, just say thank you, let it in. Take the attaboys. That's your higher power going, attaboy, good job. But the point is, this bit of service work I did to help Celia grew and touched her entire family. And then it's going to touch all the people that they know because her mother's telling me she's got other people watching this podcast as she watches it faithfully. Hi to you out there, Jolene. Good to see you. And then it comes back on you like a tsunami and you're just like, whoa. Now, how many of us out there who are listening are having bad things come back at you like a tsunami? Almost like the other shoe's going to drop and here comes all the crap pile, like an avalanche. To have that experience just from doing a little bit, just day by day, let me just help you along the path. Let me just do a little service. Unbelievable how it pays off. And it can keep you high for the rest of the day, week, month, whatever. Whenever your little stupid alcoholic brain is trying to tell you, you're not worthy and you know that you really are a piece of crap and blah, 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 the way our committee does in our head all the time. Well, you've got that one example where it's like, well, one person loves me and one person cares about me. And that's gold. That's freaking fuel. That's a lifeline to keep us sober. So please think about this in a new way. I got a guy in my group right now who found a fellow in our home group who is taking food and clothing to the homeless every weekend. And there was a part of his heart that said, I want in. And it was astounding to watch that when this fellow started doing this service work on the weekends, his whole attitude and approach to sobriety shifted, and he went to that next level of recovery. Like right before my eyes, he just shifted into this high gear. And again, just from helping others. And I said to him today in front of everyone else, I said, you could ask him that when he's driving home, ask him if he feels high. And ask him if he feels like, if somebody said, do you want a drink? I'll bet he would say, hell no, I'm too high, I feel great. And he's in the camera doing this while I'm saying all that. So it is the secret to heaven on earth, as the placard says. We just haven't been taught it. I was taught be nice to others, think of others. Oh, I'm thinking of you, give to the poor, pop a couple of dollars in the Salvation Army tub. But actively seeking service work, actively seeking people you can help. If you're in part of a 12-step group of any kind, that opportunity is right in front of you. As soon as the new person walks in, hey, how you doing? I'm Chris. How you doing? You need my number? And miracles happen. That's all I can say. Now, let me tell you about the miracles about passing this juice on to your sponsees and then get to see them pass it on. I want to talk about my good friend LJ, who we had on the podcast recently, who, after the tragedy of the hurricane, and particularly the mudslides that happened in North Carolina and throughout the coast, this man took a week off work and arranged it with his employer to just go help the people dig out of the mud and with his church group. And I was like, holy crap, now that is some service work. And he was sending me pictures all week, which I wish I could show you. Just devastation that when the dam broke or whatever it was, everything just overflowed and it's just mud. I mean, we're talking about people's homes buried in mud and cars and everything. And he's sending me photographs as they're trying to help them dig out. And people are living on their front lawn literally with a little, grill to eat, because their home's gone. And they don't have any other options. And, again, just to get to be a part of that teaches me. Like my sponsee is teaching me at that moment that he's willing to make that commitment to do that. Another moment came for me when I first started in this field. And it was the time of around Katrina in New Orleans. And half the staff at our treatment center just got in a van and went down there to help without even knowing where they were going to stay, if they were going to eat, or where they were going to find clean water. They literally gave up their paycheck for 2 weeks and just got in a van and went to help. And I'm sitting there going, well, I thought I was spiritual, but I got a long way to go. Again, you don't have to do that. Again, we have this weird idea, I've got to go to Calcutta and save the poor like Mother Teresa. That's not true. Service opportunities are all around you. How about a neighbor that's sick and their lawn hasn't been cut, and you just go over and cut their grass like Dan's dad would probably do without even thinking about it? How about, making a pie for somebody that is going through a tough time and you're good at making pies? Or here's what Celia does. Send a card to somebody in the mail saying thinking of you and hope you're good and blah, blah, blah. You'd be amazed the power of the mail. I know we got email and all these other ways of staying connected, but I love getting something in the mail that's not a bill or a commercial for something. And I'm like, what's this? Oh my God, I'm getting a card. How cool is that? And it makes your whole day, week, month, I've got another spiritual teacher that's what she does at night. She can't sleep at night because she's attuned to the spirits. She sleeps later in the night and during the day a bit. And she sits up and she creates collages and homemade cards, and she just sends them out to the people she feels like she's getting tuned need them. And then the guy wakes up and he has a card in the mail from somebody he didn't expect to get. So have fun with it. One thing I will caution you on, service work should never be a chore. And you don't want to do service work while you're gritting your teeth because you've got a resentment because you didn't want to do it in the first place. So if somebody asks you to move and your first impulse is, I can't do that. I've got other things that got to get done and I don't want to do that. But you say yes and you go do it, it will kill the gift. Again, it's no expectation of return. And sometimes the return might be, well, they better be grateful and they better appreciate how much I'm giving up. That's no way to go in there. So do your service work out of the love of your heart and because you want to give and you're excited, and it should be invigorating. You're going to come out charged up rather than coming home like, I'm so wore out and I got to do all this other stuff. So pick and choose carefully and find your fit would be the last thing I would say too, because we all have certain gifts. Dan and I have a gift that he's good at the technology. I'm good at the talk, blah, blah, blah. You can see me every week here moving my mouth. And so we're here doing this as a form of service work. And we're not taking money for this. We have no expectation of return. We just want more listeners and to help more people. That's all we want out of this. So find your niche, and believe me, giving of your heart and doing something that takes you out of you, and then you feel like you contributed something to the world being a better place, no greater high is available to you out of a pill, a pipe, or a bottle. I can assure you of that. So let's turn it over to our friend Dan and get some of his thoughts, because I know he's been a fantastic sponsor. I've lost track on how many people you actually do sponsor, Dan. But he took me at my word when I told him that was an expectation, that if you work with me, I want one thing from you, and that is to turn back and reach your hand out to the guy behind you and take them through the work. So thank you for following my directions on that.
I was talking the other day to somebody that I was desperate to stay sober. And when you told me to do something, I did my damnedest to do it. And when I put that expectation in the ground rules, when I work with a new guy, that, hey, when we get done with this, I'm going to expect you to turn around and give it away to other people. But it's like a tough one to enforce, right? You can drop a guy because he's not doing it. If he's trying, he's got his hand up and he's making the effort. And, of course, I'm not going to. I believe this service work thing, this doing stuff for people without any expectation of anything in return, I think it's way up there on the list of essential elements to this happy, joyous, and free life. Like I don't think you can take and unplug that particular element. It is essential, and not just to us in recovery. I think it's essential, period, to the human condition. That if you're not doing something along those lines, you're leaving money on the table. You need to be doing this. And like you said, I always remember somebody told me, if I wanted to improve my self-esteem, I needed to do esteemable things. And there's not much more esteemable than when you're helping out these other people that live on this planet with you, doing good things. You was talking about sharing, I'll tell a little story I remember, and it still impacts me today. I was about 9 months sober, and I had been working with you, and I was already through the work, and I was attempting to sponsor people, and I was in a meeting up in Georgetown, and they were making this plea that they really need people to sign up to chair. And I said, well, I will. And I walk up to put my name down there, and the guy said, how much time you got? And I said, 9 months. He said, well, you got to have a year to chair here. And it's like, and I've been going to this meeting the whole time. They seen me, they knew what I was doing and heard me share and saw what I was doing. And that, it did create a resentment. I didn't go back to that meeting again. I think it's just unbelievable how we will cripple and trip up somebody's progress with these goofy little rules that we have like that. I try to get my guys to sponsor in order to chair, as early as I can. And I said, don't worry about it. I'll sit right there beside you, like you said, and I'll be the co-chair and you chair in our meeting. And you'll see, man, that is another one of those, to chair your meetings. That's something that everybody knows you because you're in there for 4 weeks talking, so you can build that connection stuff, and B, you get high chairing a meeting. Hell, I get high doing these podcasts. I feel good. Sometimes I come in here and I'm just not really pumped up, really, not necessarily anything bad or nothing like that. But then I come in here and we tape a couple of these things, and the energy from knowing that you're making the attempt to help people, because some of this stuff is willingness, right? You may or may not be able to actually get this guy through the work, right? He may not. He's not willing. But if you're willing to help, you get the same amount of juice, because my recovery and the karma points I get from attempting to sponsor people, that's another thing I love about that. There's no relevance to the success I have with that person. I don't have to be successful. Their recovery success does not affect me. Just for the piece of it that I'm willing to go out and help people. And I'm so blessed that I've had so many men come walking through my life asking me to sponsor them. And I'm a numbers guy. I'm up into I've taken well over 30 people through the work in my almost 10 years of doing this, and that averaged out to about 3 per year, and that's about the way I like it. That again, like I said a minute ago, I believe sponsoring people is an essential element to staying sober. It is the one thing that you can miss some amends and not do all your amends, and you could maybe leave some stuff off the table in your 4th and 5th. But if you get up into 12 and you actually sponsor people, that little bit of stuff, because we know it's not perfection, this sponsoring thing will override that. Now, I'm not suggesting that as a way to do it. As I've said before, when I was so desperate when I got here, because of my threat was that I was going to go to prison if I didn't stay sober. And I really, really, really didn't want that to happen. That I didn't think I had any choice on doing all my amends. I didn't know that was an option. I find guys today quite often think that's an option to which amends you're going to do.
The other thing real quick is that people don't understand how it will stave off depression and anxiety. And it seems like a tall order, though. Somebody comes to you and they say, man, I'm really depressed. I got seasonal affective disorder. My meds aren't working. And then you as a sponsor say, you need to do some service work.
Yep.
Now, they're going to look at you like you're nuts. And they can't seem to find it in them. I can't even get off the bed. And you're telling me to, but I'm telling you, if you get them to go down to the homeless with the guys and help out, God bless Brian for doing that, they're going to get a juice pump that will dispel that depression, at least for the afternoon, probably for a few days. But it's a tall order because, again, it seems counterintuitive. We all are suffering from this programming that what I get out of it comes first. Now, nobody wants to cop to that because it's an ugly look. But let's face it, in America, it's the me, me, me ego. And that's about, hey, man, I mean, I love you, and I'm sorry about your situation, and here's $1. But, man, my bank account, that's mine. That's important. And, that's just who we are. We're consumers in this country.
And this whole thing about, all over in the book, it talks about, like, the term bondage to self.
Bondage with self.
We're selfish, self-centered. And the antidote for self-centeredness and bondage to self is help you. That's the antidote to me being self-centered and selfish. And it warmed, it opened up my heart to being open, because I was just like that. I didn't want to really take time out of my day to do this stuff. But when I got through this work, I wanted to, and I've heard my sponsees say this too, that like when I took you took me through the work, and it was so cool what I got. What I wanted to do was turn it around and give it to other people. Yeah. And I'll hear my sponsees saying the same thing.
Can't wait to sponsor.
Can't wait to sponsor people. How do I get there? And we got so many qualified sponsors at Spiritual Underground. That it's a little of a battle to win one in there. I do a pretty good job. I've been around a little bit, but I know that some of our guys that are newer can't get, they're not getting chosen, or people are not coming to them. And the only next thing is to branch out to other meetings. And I tell them, I say, share that you need sponsees. I know one time we were doing a TSSR meeting, and I was talking about this very thing, and I looked into the camera and I pointed and I said, I need to sponsor you. And Toby heard that personally. He took that like he said, it felt like you were talking to me, Dan. And I heard you say you needed to sponsor me. And, and he called the next day and told me that little story. And he actually said it like the newcomer, like, I heard what you said last night. I was like, oh boy, what did I say? Because I don't ever know for sure what I said. And he said, you said that you needed to sponsor me. And we joke around about that today. Because I do need that in my life. And, there's so many ways to do to get service into your life, man. And again, I think it's essential as an alcoholic. I need to keep my toe in the water there, but you can supplement that like Brian does with the homeless. And, you go digging around, you'll find opportunities to do it. And as I said before, the little sticky notes that fall from the air, one time a sticky note fell from the air to make my own custom wooden tokens, and when I'm making them, I'm in a good mood. Sometimes it just feels good, and then you go give them out, and the people are so appreciative of them, and this stuff fell out of the sky, these crazy opportunities to participate in my recovery, these unique things. And it's always been an anchor in my life. Sponsoring people, my sponsees, these guys who now I am so tight with, this big bunch, like there's circles. Like I got my sponsees in the inner circle, and then their sponsees are just another wave out. And I don't mean to put that in any kind of, it's like concentric circles of support that has been built up over, one day me saying, okay, yeah, I'll sponsor you.
Now, just to present a different angle on it, because the newcomer can actually do service work from the minute they get their sponsor. And I'm going to explain this to you. I field a lot of questions in my group, or I should say stories, that I felt horrible last night. I felt like I was going to drink. Did you call your sponsor? No. I felt like I was going to be bothering him, or I feel like I'm overcalling him. And I'm like, you're being selfish. And they always stop and look at me like, what? Yeah, you're not calling your sponsor as being selfish. Why? You need to do that service work to lower your ego and call your sponsor for help, and that will allow him to do his service work. And you being selfish and keeping that juice to yourself and not allowing him to get juice from helping you may cause him to drink, and you might not have a sponsor anymore. That is the lifeline, folks. Us helping the new guy keeps us sober. It's been that way since Bill was helping guys in the Bowery of New York when he was only a month sober. So when you don't call your sponsor for any problem and say, well, it's stupid or it's small or I just don't want to bother him, you are preventing that juice flow to your sponsor. So in that sense, when you call, that's a form of service for your sponsor to raise their vibration, because they might be having a really shitty day. And maybe that's the only good thing that happened that day was they got to help you with your problem.
Yep.
So stop that bullshit that I might be bothering him.
Yep, I like that angle, and I'm pretty sure you gave it to me once about I teach my guys that when they're having these crappy days or something has gone south in their life, post it on the Discord, because otherwise if you don't, you keep it to yourself, you're preventing all these men their opportunity to come in and service you, to do some service work and uplift you. And someday, they'll need it too, and you can give it back to them.
And the funny thing is that it's such a foreign concept for them, though, to think about anybody but themselves, right? Remember, that's the obsession. This obsession with self. When I come in, it's like everything's affecting me. And I'll say to them, but did you ever consider that maybe your sponsor needs that call? And they're never even crossed their mind because they're all wrapped up in their fear or anxiety about calling them. It's just crazy, right?
Yep, it is.
So consider
block.
how you might be able to wrap this into your life, no matter how large or small, and start small, because I don't want you to overextend yourself. But, and this goes for everybody listening, not just addicts and alcoholics. Get some service work of some kind in your life, and you will find your depression and anxiety dissolving very quickly and not showing up as much. I can promise you that. Yeah. It's just that we're lucky to be in a program where I know my guy's probably going to call me today and have something going on, and then automatically I get that chance to be of service. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, there's so many of these built-in benefits of being in a 12-step recovery that you get that's a benefit you get to get handed opportunities to get out of yourself.
So there's two stories from the Buddhists that I want to share. I'm not sure the first one is from the Buddhism tradition, but I think I've been taught it was. So there's this man who passed away, and he died and went to hell, unfortunately. And when he woke up, he found he was sitting at this big giant bowl, and they were tied to their chairs. They could not move. All they could move was their head and the upper part of their body. And they're in front of this big giant bowl, like everybody. There's like 50, 30 people, whatever, surrounding this big giant bowl of the most delectable smelling, aromatic, beautifully wonderful food possible. And they're all starving. And no matter what they do, there are some spoons there, but when they look down, these spoons are on these long sticks, and it's attached. There's nothing they can do, and all they can do is reach down and try to get some, but they can't quite get to the bowl. But they can get to the spoon, but they can't get to the spoon to feed themselves. And guess what they figured out? They figured out if I take this into the stick, and I take it, and I feed the guy across from me, then he survives, and then he can feed me back. And that's a beautiful analogy for what recovery is. I'm going to feed my newcomer for the day when I ain't feeling it, and then he's going to call me with his juice or just being my newcomer, and he's going to carry me through. Yep. And that's been working since 1935. So please feed the person across the room from you, and next time you're at a meeting, think about that story. And think about, does that guy need to be fed? Let me pick up my spoon and feed that guy over there.
Yeah, because just a newcomer, even you can go talk to the other newcomer.
Sure.
And the
if you've been there a week
and
the other guy's brand new, he thinks you're an old timer.
Yep.
And the last phrase I love from the Buddhists is they say, how do you get into heaven? And the answer is you have to bring someone with you. So do that, and you will have a happier life than you've ever had on this planet. So write us in. Tell us how you're doing out there with that. Ask questions if you like. Every week we answer your questions on this podcast. You send them to IM12, the word recovery, at gmail.com. Again, that's IM12, the word recovery, at gmail.com. And we make you promises here. When we make you promises, we'll read any question, provided it's not profane or get us banned from YouTube. And we will never identify you. We don't give your name or anything, so you're totally safe. Ask for a friend. Whatever, relationships, whatever's on your mind, we will help you with your issues in life. All right, so we got a couple questions we're going to address, so let's get right to the question and answers. All right, we have two quick questions this week, but they're very deep in nature, so check these out. First question is, how do you know when your sponsor just isn't a good fit for you? Should you wait to find a new sponsor if they aren't a good fit if you've already started the work? So again, how do you know if your sponsor just isn't a good fit for you? I had a very profound experience with this, and my most profound experiences with this kind of stuff, with wisdom, I should say, and recovery, have always been the simplest things. That's why we always say it's a simple program for complicated people. But I was having a hell of a time with a new sponsor, and it just seemed every time I tried to meet him here, he would go there, and every time he would do this and I would do that, and we were trying so hard to find that workable conditions for a good relationship, and it just wasn't happening. I mean, we tried every angle, and both of us were getting more frustrated. So I called my sponsor up, and it was not the doctor at the time. It was another man in that home group, very well known in our community here in Louisville. And I said, I'm just, I don't know what to do with this guy. Do I fire him? What do I need to do? And here comes this voice after I just bitched for a half hour, and goes, Christopher, sometimes it's just not a good fit. Now, if you're not recovering, that might not seem funny to you, but I'm telling you, the obvious, which was what we were struggling with, and I just needed someone to put it into words, was like, oh, yeah, it doesn't always have to fit. That's a weird idea we have. Like the one guy you threw a dart at the dartboard and you picked as a sponsor, and you don't even know him, and you're hoping like, oh, I hope it's a perfect fit. It not always is. What's the old phrase? Sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. Well, same deal with sponsors. You got to give them out a try. One thing you don't want to do is sit on the sideline saying, well, I'm waiting to pick the perfect one. That will never get you there. You've got to give people a try. You got to take them out for a test drive. So get your sponsor, give them a try, and then if it's not working, we do have some guidelines. I'll go over those in a second on how you make a change. But sometimes it just is not a good fit for you. I wanted to validate that, and you'll feel it in your gut. Like we're just not relating. We're just not communicating. It's just not syncing up. Sometimes it's schedules. I've seen people have a hell of a time working out when they're going to get together, and it seems to always get messed up. And I'm like, might need to change sponsors. And they're like, what are you talking about? I say, hey, you're supposed to meet them for 3 weeks. And you haven't met for 3 weeks. So, but what we do is I always tell people, when you have a sponsor, it's a bird in the hand. So you don't want to give up a bird in the hand for two in the bush. And I would highly recommend that you get your other sponsor lined up before you make any changes, because at least you've got a phone call. At least you've got a support in your corner. So don't go firing your sponsor out of the bat. And if firing is too tough a term for you, then just say moving on to another person. Then when you get your new person in place, hopefully your sponsor new sponsor will order you to do this, but you got to keep it clean. You got to go back and make sure this person understands you're working with someone else. Do not let that hang. It will haunt you, and it will be a problem later on, where that sponsor thinks they're still sponsoring you, and they're trying to give you your chip at the meeting, and suddenly you have a new sponsor, and people's feelings get hurt. So we recommend that the first thing you do is go and thank them for everything they did for you. Thank them profusely. Tell them that if it hadn't been for them, you don't know if you would have stayed sober the amount of time you've been sober, so thank you so much. Then you say, I've come across or found another person in the group that I'm really drawn to. I just feel in my gut, higher powers tell me I got to work with this guy, so I hope you understand, but I'm going to go do the steps with this person. Now, if this person that you're leaving is working a good program, they're going to be great. It's not a personal thing. You need to find the one that works best for you. This is between you and your higher power. God bless. Go work with that man. If they go, well, hell no, what the hell? Now, there is a qualifier here. I do question my guy about, okay, well, why you're making this change and what are you looking for? What does this guy have? Asking questions is fine. Defensiveness is different. Like if they're taking it personally, like, you'll feel it. It's an energy that's just kind of like, eh. And when you get that energy, unfortunately, if you do, it's rare, but you may get it. It's validation that it's time to make a change. It's a good thing you're making a change. Because again, they're making it a personal thing rather than a God thing, a spiritual thing. But I do think it's fair to hash it out with your sponsor, because sponsees get crazy notions, man. I mean, they'll come to you one night, a guy will, and say, I've got this woman I found, and I feel like she needs to be my sponsor. And I'm like, whoa, I got to ask you a question about that. I can't just let you walk into that fan blade and be torn apart to ribbons. So let your sponsor flesh it out and find out, is this a really good, sound decision for you? But again, it's all about, hey, man, it's not a personal thing. Come back to me later and go give it a try. Maybe you might want to come back to me and do the steps in the future. But you don't have to wait, if you've already started the work, to find another sponsor. I had a man approach me in our group recently who's on his 4th step, and it's just not working for him. And I'm saying, I'm so glad you came to me, man. Don't keep that to yourself. You don't have to stay with a person. This is your life at stake. This is probably the most important decision of your life. So, don't worry about doing it perfectly or getting the right guy, but worry about that if it's not the right guy, I'm willing to be flexible and make a change. And so I told this person, hell yeah, man, tell me who you're thinking about. I'll give you the heads up on if it's a good guy or not. And they came to me this week and told me who they were thinking about. And it's perfect. It's a great guy. It's a solid dude in recovery. And I'm like, I'm excited for you. So get this guy first. Go thank your sponsor. Clear up the street. Let them know you're doing this. And then move on. No big deals. And changing sponsorship in recovery is a tradition. It's a good tradition. Sometimes the guys might want to work the steps with somebody else, and I bless them on their way and say, well, go work the steps with them and come back to me if you need to. And it's just all works out. It's all about teachers. You can't have the same teacher all the time. Switch it up a little bit is good. But if it's not a good fit, God forbid, get away, because it will make you sick, because you'll have that resentment stuff going on. So, Dan, did you ever have a tough time with your fits? I know you and I hit it off pretty good from the beginning, but I know you were in AA a lot before I ever met you.
Yeah, and that what happened back then was all on me. I can see that today. But I'll tell you, I have seen also this dynamic, and it's tough to register as a new guy, because it's that the disease will try to tell you that too sometimes. I've seen that when the disease is running you off and telling you that this guy, that this is not the right sponsor for me. And I hit it off with people. My personality probably, I've never had somebody really tell me it wasn't a good fit unless it was a dodge. It was a way to bounce. So that whole thing about getting a new sponsor, there's some other stuff about. Or they just didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to do the work. That's what it was. And I knew that because of this sixth sense that this recovery stuff gives you. And I try to talk to them about it, but once they've made that break, it's tough to reel them back in again and say, okay, let's just keep going.
You made a pun there. Did you catch it? You said sixth sense, but it's like sick sense. You get a sixth sense when they're like getting sick on you.
Yeah, you do get that. So and I honestly don't know what you do about that. If it's like, what would be a way to like sanity check? Is this the disease screwing me and running me off, or is this really because a brand newcomer, his stuff ain't working so good, right?
Right.
And that could be the part of the cunning, baffling, powerful of this disease telling you that this guy ain't a good fit for you, when it's really your disease is wanting you to go back out and drink.
That's where I do the service work. I consider it of asking questions, just flesh it out. I'll ask my guy, like, well, what's up? What's wrong? What's the issue? Because you can tell me, my feelings won't be hurt.
Yeah.
Do you not like my personality? Do I have BO? Or is it that I'm making you do things you just don't want to do?
Yeah.
Because, that's important for you to know.
So as a newcomer, you probably should maybe talk to somebody else about it too.
Yeah.
And, someone, you kind of.
An older timer, not just a common newcomer. Talk to somebody with some experience.
Some time and check it out with somebody before making that decision too, because you might have as far as this other guy that's got more experience, you may have exactly the sponsor you need and you just don't know it yet. And this guy can say, no, stick with this dude. I would encourage you to stick with him and not go to switching. I watched one guy do like that. Divine. It's like Tarzan swinging through the jungle, where you get one vine in your hand before you let go of the other one, and just change sponsors and change sponsors until he ultimately relapsed. Mm-hmm. Over more than like a year, it was just this constant change of sponsors. And
so I know what he was putting off. He was putting off the 4-step.
Yeah.
See, it's easy to float through 1 through 3 with a guy. But then when you have to start getting things on paper and your sponsor wants to see it, did you do anything? Show me your progress.
Yeah.
And time to hit that vine. I'm out of here.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, and if you got a good sponsor, which, that's the thing. If he ain't a good fit, it may be because, frankly, he's just not a very good sponsor, and they're out there. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, but they are out there. If you got a good sponsor, he's going to do like you said. So can you help me understand why you feel that that's what you need to do? And like you said, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just talk to me. But that's so hard for a newcomer to do, to go talk to their sponsor about switching sponsors.
It is, but I usually take the pressure off my guy from the get-go, because you get these guys that are like hemming and hawing, or they just want to do a temporary, would you be my temporary sponsor?
Yeah.
So I'm like, look, dude, it's not that serious. Just walk with me a little bit. If you like what I have, just walk with me a little bit. We'll just go walking a little bit. I'll talk to you. I'll share some shit. If you like what you get, stick around.
Yeah.
If you don't like what you get, you're welcome to go anytime you want.
I do
but this also goes the other way. If I don't like what I get from you, I'll kick you to the curb.
Yeah.
Because this is a two-way street. And I think that's such a powerful lesson to teach their selfishness right from the get-go. You are not going to use me up like a sponge. You have to give me the juice. You have to do the work that I prescribe and show me the results so I can get that God shot back. And if you don't, then you're not doing your job as a sponsee. So this is a man-to-man agreed arrangement. You have a job to do. I have a job to do. And I like you when you shake their hand in step 3 and make them make that commitment as a man.
We're going to make a pact. Got that from Scott Lee.
Powerful. So I would encourage this person, if you're thinking about it, so I would say to this person, if you're thinking about it, it's probably not a good fit. So let's go ahead and talk to other people and start putting your feelers out because that's what I did with this fella. I said, well, who do you like and what are you thinking about? And, just start looking around. Let's see what God has in store too. All right, so second question for today, simple and sweet. How do you deal, we all can relate to this one. How do you deal with someone that is in your group but doesn't work the steps and is constantly complaining about their life? Wow. How many people, Dan, have you and I known like that over the years?
No doubt.
They just want to come to the meeting and do a check-in and bitch about their shit, and they won't pick up a single tool. And nothing changes. What's the old saying? Nothing changes if nothing changes. I'm thinking about showing that Theo Vaughn in group tomorrow morning because I got a couple of people in my group right now. They're just floating. They're just doing nothing. And so nothing changes. You're not going to get any change in your life. So first thing I would say is get the hell away from them because they're toxic. And don't make it your personal mission to correct them because that's a way they can draw you in. Again, it's stealing your energy, your focus, and it's triggering your resentment bug. And so I try to just have as little interaction with them as possible. And then if they're talking during the meeting, you can always meditate. A great way to trick at the meeting I learned a long time ago is put your elbows on your knees and look at the floor, and nobody knows you has your eye closed, and you might be praying for the guy or meditating or checking out entirely and breathing, because you just don't want to hear their toxic crap. Or just excuse yourself to the restroom if it's that bothers you that bad. And it sounds like it's getting to a point where it is starting to bother you pretty hardly, quite a bit, I should say. And so now, I'm not above as an old-timer, and I don't know if this is your position, but maybe you could talk to an old-timer about this. I'll throw a lifeline to the guy and say, look, man, you're coming in here week after week, day after day, month after month, and nothing's getting any better. I mean, what's the point? We have a solution here, and we're willing to help you do it. But if you're not going to do it, then what's the point? What are we doing here? And just to let them know that help is available, but usually it gets rejected. They're not going to pick you up on it. But at least I offered, and at least somebody gave them a chance before we just banned you, which there is no such thing. But we have a joke between me and Dan, banned you from the group. So, but we, over the years and maybe even currently, there's a couple of people that might be getting up and just saying toxic shit where you're just like, oh my God, why is it that the guy that's the sickest insists on talking every week or has to say something on something they're not qualified to speak on because they're not working the tools, but they think they're going to share their wisdom, and it's just sad. It's the self-absorbed delusion that you don't see yourself is just uncanny. But it is very common. Remember, our doors are open to anybody. We don't take tickets, and there's no admission fee. So,
and sick people come here.
That's what it's for.
It is, man.
What do you think?
The whole reason it's for. It is a tough thing to do that. To have to specifically if they're sharing. If they're just hanging around, you can usually dodge them and stuff. And if they're just when that when you go talk to him, you're setting yourself up, and it's easy. At least it's easy enough for me to just make sure that don't happen. And if I start to get trapped, I'll make up an excuse about it. I gotta get something out of my car for a bill. And he's got to run. So just separate myself from him. But the stuff, especially when people are sharing those tools that you were saying. that I was taught to tune in and see if they'll say something. If I can get any little bit out of something that they say, whether if they're full of shit and all that, and you know it, just look for something that you can hang on to, some little seed of something, and then or sit there and I try to do this. I try to stare right at them. I'm better some days at this than I am at others, but I try to stare right at them, turn off my ears, and pray for them. And just inside my head, and it looks like I'm paying attention. But I sometimes catch myself, though, like getting pretty, like you said, looking down and finding something else, pick at my fingers, just do something to try to wait for the bell to ring so that we're done and we can move on to whatever's next. It's a tough thing. There's tools and tricks and stuff, and ultimately, like, what the thing is hopefully somebody with some substance will tune them in and let them know they're doing this if you're not really in a position to do it, but that's what I hope for. I hope that they'll get some feedback that will help them so they don't have to stay stuck in this hamster wheel.
So what Dan's saying, that's really the job of the old timers. So if you've got some real old timers in your group, go to them and say, man, do we need to talk to this guy, or is this just me? And see what they say. There is that other aspect of compassion where we use that phrase, there for the grace of God go I, because most of us came in really clueless and sick as hell, and I've said a lot of shit over the years when I was in early recovery that my home group tolerated that I'm not so sure I would have tolerated. So trying to remember that they're sick and that they're one of us, and principles before personalities.
And we encourage people to share, and they're up there trying to do that, and give them some grace.
It's hard, though.
It is hard.
Especially if they eat up the time. I don't know if it's this person's group, but here's one thing you could do if you don't have it in place. Please set a time limit. That's been one of the most invaluable tools that I've adopted over the years. Instead of letting some bonehead come in and hijack the meeting for a half hour and nobody doesn't get any tools, never hears about the solution, and the newcomer's like, well, what's that crap? I went to the meeting, it's just this guy bitching the whole meeting. So please, what we do in our group is we have a nice little meditation chime. We go ding, and if you don't stop, we go ding, 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 ding. We jokingly say that, and I've never seen anybody have to get the ding, 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 ding too much. Occasionally it happens, but not too much. But again, it's just being respectful. 3 minutes in and out, and our old friend Dr. Bob used to say anything over 5 minutes in a share is ego. So, it might be profound, but you probably could just do with 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and that'd be enough.
It is so good, especially when you're in a group like ours where we are trained now to do that. People know they got to keep their shit tight.
Get right to the point.
Bunch of fluff.
Get right to the point.
It was a dark and stormy Wednesday night. And
that is something that I don't have the luxury of in group.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord, Dan. I have to find those right spots. Like, you do realize, I'm never, ever going to say this, except maybe once on this podcast, so here it comes. You do realize there's other people in this group. Because they literally will go off as if it's their spotlight, and it's an individual one-on-one session just for them. Holy crap. And they don't even realize it. That's a funny thing. Whenever I finally break in and gently move them on, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize anything. They literally had no clue. They just hijacked the whole meeting.
They just open mouth and blah.
And again, it's the result of us having so much inside and never having a place to express it. So
if they do that, and then they'll say, well, I don't really have any resentments.
Or I don't really want to get up and share. I don't feel like I have anything to say. And then blah. Yeah.
Yep. Remember one guy in particular, I don't really have much to say on this. And then go. If the reader who wrote the question is the reader, writer,
if the viewer and the writer, right, who wrote this question is watching this, did you see what Dan and I just did? We turned it into a joke. And that is probably the most powerful tool I've ever found in recovery is don't ever lose your sense of humor.
Yep.
Even against the assholes, you got to laugh at these
don't
guys.
Take yourself too damn serious.
Well, that, and also don't take them and their stuff
too
seriously. I mean, he's just a sick fuck. That's all he is. He doesn't know any better.
Yep.
And it's funny when I said that, I pictured one guy in particular. It's funny how we can have the same features in mind. God bless him. There for the grace of God go by.
Yep.
So, as you see, we will address any question and try to have some fun with it. So please send us your questions. I am 12wordrecovery@gmail.com. Lastly, on the podcast, we don't do this often, but we try to do it occasionally. Please help us get this word out about this show. It's free, and so many people are in early recovery and not getting that good juju juice. So please send them to us. Post it on your Facebook page. Like, subscribe, comment. Anything we can do to start spread the word. We are growing steadily, no doubt. Every week our numbers are inching. But you're never going to break through the noise of YouTube and how much is on there until you have that big breakthrough moment. And we need your help to do that. So please help us help more people. And there's your service work. You can do service work that way.
There's some service work right there.
So we like to close these podcasts with the Serenity Prayer. If you would like to join us at home, please do. And the prayer, Dan? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woo-hoo! See you next time. Come back and see us. We love you. Take care of yourself.